5 rounds of combat will be held. Every time Jeff takes a hit, he's going to lose, 1d10 stability. He has a possibility of getting completely fucking destroyed here, but it's unlikely. He could be. Freak of RNG if he gets hit all 5 rounds. You guys are, I think, all out of fate points at this point.
Yeah.
Shauna's just here to watch this dude explode, probably. So Tonayo is going to, after he blocks Jeff's first attack and says that about being able to breed him, he then pulls on Jeff's wrist and basically tries to bring him down off balance without doing any damage to him. He is setting up an advantage for himself with a stunt that he has. Jeff's going to have to roll against this. Okay. Tonayo is able to create an advantage for his next attack. The witnesses have seen him do this before. His setups are extremely brutal. Like he'll pull someone over and then strike them in the throat, or just completely, he could end the fight in one hit this way. He is a guerrilla fighter. Although Jeff isn't completely taken off balance yet, the next attack could be quite difficult for him to deal with. It is Jeff's turn. He has been pulled slightly off balance. I'll let you guys decide. He could either do his own attack or put himself back on balance, getting rid of Tonayo's advantage. I will tell you, Tonayo has a stunt that gives him an extra shift of damage and a +3 when he uses Gorilla to create an advantage in combat. So what do you want him to do? Do you want him to try to negate the advantage, or do you want him to just attack Tonayo?
He should probably try to negate it.
We'll see if he'll need a dice for this. Let's see. Oh, no. He not only negates the advantage by turning his body and like adjusting himself with laser precision, but he quickly flashes behind Tonayo, who is in a position prepared to strike him, and thus vulnerable to an attack from behind that he couldn't have possibly predicted, or at least didn't predict in this case, that a human would be able to just pass through his guard that easily. Jeff is on the other side of him now with an advantage. His next roll gets a +2. He basically nothing personnel kid fucking Tonayo. Tonayo spins around with one palm flaming with Haman energy and attempts to quickly land a devastating strike on Jeff. He's going to fate point this with his high concept that he has a burning spirit. He won't be shown up by this walking sun god, no matter how much he wants to win. He has a +6 to this attack. Jeff is going to use, let's see, Define Vision to see this attack and avoid it properly. Nah, we'll go with speed. Wow. Tonayo came around with a palm strike of ripple energy. Jeff quickly countered it. And now the two are locked almost wrist to wrist. Combatants that are now exercising basically ripple versus light. A bright sphere of energy at the point of conflict begins to expand outwards until it releases, explodes, and blows back like all the other like audience members around their little arena combat, as they are now like basically unleashing the forces that they command. This fight is about to become less of a boxing match and more of a clash between two primordial forces. The aggressive, flashing heat style of Tona, the Sun Mover, versus the solid light that Jeff is composed of. Drawing a spear made of pure light, being point blank range with Tona, the Sun Mover, may catch Tona off guard. The 5. Tona is able to sort of dance to the side and uses the underside of his hand, the butt of his palm, whatever you call it, basically the part near the wrist and the palm, to guide the spear away from him, though it burns his flesh. He takes 1 physical shift of damage and then proceeds to pound his chest with one fist and declare, "I am the lost son of the Noatu. I have disappointed my people for far too long. Though conquest and battle have seen me do well, I wouldn't be able to look my ancestors in the eyes if I couldn't tell them that I kicked your ass. So he self-compels and makes himself more proud and destructive at this point, giving him a fate point back, but causing him some measure of stress here. It's all on him now. If he loses, it could be bad for him after making such a pronouncement. And with that fate point that he just gained, he is going to clash with Jeff. So first roll comes with a +2 because he has a stunt for this. It's a 5. A 5. A 1. It seems that they are evenly matched in this regard. The duel is a draw as the two competitors begin to rapidly punch at one another at first, and then their stands emerge from behind them and begin to also just flurry punch at one another. Actually, Tonayo just screaming, "Kapana, kapana, kapana, kapana!" And Jeff kind of calmly with his arms folded, watching as Mr. Blue Sky just flurries with its own punches. The two of them, as they punch, seem to be understanding each other a little better from their respective fighting style in a way that they clash, able to adjust their kind of punches, their trajectories, their speeds and power based on what their opponent is doing. Yeah, what is Jeff? What would be Jeff's battle shout for this? I'm open to suggestions. I don't think I've ever considered it. I'm trying to think of an ELO type. What's an ELO type of thing, I guess?
Like a lyric part or something. Don't bring me down.
Yeah, don't bring me down. Don't bring me down, 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 down. The two of them clash violently, creating more sparks of energy in the air. Each clash of fist against fist, stand against stand, creating greater blasts and shockwaves around the both of them as light just collides, explodes with ripple energy. Tonayo, after this clash occurs, takes a step back, and then once the smoke clears, can be seen just with one arm supporting the other, and then his fingers on his chin as if he's a great thinker. Interesting. One thing I noticed, this whole fight, you haven't broken a sweat. You haven't even breathed. You don't, do you? I think I see the problem now. 2 more exchanges. Let's see if you survive them. Jeff calls up another spear of light, and Mr. Blue Sky appears beside him with a smile on his face. Jeff smiles a little himself. I can't say that I've fought anyone recently who said that they had a chance, much less threatened my own survival. Your arrogance is admirable. Even in the face of a god, you still find time to be a complete and total clown. And then he just pulls the spear back. Now, dance, clown. And then he chucks the spear with such force that it actually creates a vertical shockwave this time, blowing out basically dust around him in a ring from the point of the throw. Oof, the 3. And he sees something once the actual shockwave hits and the blast, it can be heard, that he did not expect. Tonayo is, with 2 fingers, holding the spear in the air horizontally, like just gripping it with 2 fingers, as if it were nothing but a pencil. He's just holding it in place. Nice spear. Do you want it back? And then he whips it like just around, sending it into a spin, like turning it into a buzzsaw as it is flung at Jeff. This next attack comes with a +2 to it. He even actually will self-compel on this again. The force of the blade spinning and the kind of strange reality glitching nature of these spears makes it so that even his men are being swept up and flung by the distortions that are occurring. It just flies like a buzzsaw at Jeff with it has a plus, it's an 8, basically. A result of 8. Let's see what Jeff can do. He's going to take some damage here, unless one of you wants to compel and cause him a complication. Even then, he's still going to take at least 1 stress. You could just let him take the damage, it's fine.
doing on damage? I guess physical, he's
Yeah.
still completely empty, so...
They're fine.
Yeah.
He loses 4 stability, and the spear actually, like, it doesn't land exactly, like, enough to, like, cut deep into him, but the fact that he has to stop it with Mr. Blue Sky's hands leaves him open. He only realizes too late. His head, like, basically skips a frame of animation and turns towards Tonayo just in time to see Tonayo's fist, like, rocketing into his face, basically. Tonayo just dove forward after he flung the spear, and Superman punched Jeff Linne right in his fucking jaw, more or less. Not enough to, like, break bone or break his nose or anything, if that can even happen. Yeah, what bone? But enough to take a little bit of a hit there. The two of them, now in such close proximity again, resume exchanging a series of punches, kicks. They're back to the more basic fighting that they were doing before, as opposed to the more powerful, dramatic, like, use of their abilities. Every time Jeff goes to make an attack, Tonayo, with ripple enhanced limbs, is kind of just repulsing them. And even at one point, Jeff is very surprised to see that Tonayo has put his fingers through Jeff's shoulder, with ripple around his hand, as if he were manipulating Jeff's matter directly through the Haman. Jeff basically his eyes shoot wide here at this point, because he can feel himself being altered, kind of distorted around these fingers pressed through what used to be flesh. There's now a holographic shell. Some of it even, like, parting and disappearing around Tonayo's fingers. Tonayo looks at him with darkened eyes. Just like I thought. You're nothing more than Ripple itself, in a way. And Ripple can be controlled by a master like me. Now, Tonayo slowly lifts his fingers to take Jeff off of the ground. Bow before your king! And then slams Jeff into the ground as hard as he has ever put anyone down. This comes with a +2, rather. Oof. He presses Jeff into the ground with a slam so hard that it sends up a big cloud of dust again. And what remaining Nahuatl warriors were there, sort of collecting themselves after they've been swept up in the winds and distortions, are thrown off of their feet yet again, buckled, and sent back lying onto their backs as a cloud of dust kind of settles down over the fighting arena. Once it clears, however, before anyone can see Jeff, Tonayo pulls back his finger and sees that all of them, all 5 of them, are broken on that hand. They're all broken and twisted around. He just looks down at this and then looks at Jeff and sees that the holes that he had pierced are like moving, distorting, twisting until they rewind back into place, forming his more coherent outer form. Tona, the Sun Mover, looks at his fingers and then shows it to Charna. Look at this.
Oh, ow. Does that not hurt?
Oh, it hurts. It really, really hurts.
Do you need me to straighten them?
Need is a strong word. But I don't mind if you want to play nurse. You can if you want. But honestly, he gives his wrist a hard flick and his fingers crack back into place. Ripple is a lot easier to use this way when you are dead. And he flexes, opens and closes his hands. That hurts. And with that same hand, he helped Jeff off of the ground. I have to say, it was impressive. I never thought a pretty boy, rich guy like you would put up much of a fight, and yet there you are, breaking my fingers. Though I think I would have had you there if I had practiced a little bit more in fighting something like you. You have a great weakness. You are some kind of thing, a light elemental, and you still have a human mind. That could be useful, but it will likely also be the cause of your death. I knew it the moment that I realized you weren't breathing. You still have a human mindset, but you have no interest in being a human. So I think I have found a more practical solution to your problem. You have to you have to practice breathing. I know it sounds stupid. I mean, you don't need to. You don't need to breathe. But if you made the effort to remember what it was to breathe, to form lungs, to attach yourself again to life, if you allowed yourself to have some vulnerability like that, you may be able to fix yourself. Because if you learn how to breathe, then I can maybe teach you a little bit about ritual. Just a little. Enough. So that you can compose yourself, keep yourself from exploding, as you say. I will do this not because I owe you anything, not because I feel pity for you, not because I'm a good guy. I do this because what you say about your brother is true. He seems like a good guy, even if the rest of you are fucking assholes. And if you are going to protect your brother so that he can help the earth, then I guess in a way you need to be well armed and not exploded. So pick yourself up, clean yourself off. We'll begin training a little. Oh, but the first things first. You'll have to practice breathing. Jeff, with Tonayo's help, gets off the ground. And throughout this conversation has remained mostly stone-faced, but at the end just throws his hands up in resignation. You want me to pretend to be human? Fine. I'm pretty good at acting. I think I could have been an actor if I wasn't so successful as a CEO. Like a fallback. He, with a flick of his own wrist, kind of singes all the dust on his person, just goes up in smoke. Practice breathing, he says. I'll do my best. Wait, who am I even talking to? He looks back around himself. The Nahuatl are all scattered. Tona has kind of like moved away to speak with Charna, and he really is all by himself here. Guess I'm not talking to anyone at all. All right, here we go. How do I do this? For the remainder of the day, he is going to practice breathing, which makes no sense to him because he doesn't need to. He just doesn't. The mechanics of breathing are a requirement for a living being to help oxygenate the blood and to keep the entire body alive. But when you don't need to breathe, if you think about it, it's really weird. It'd be like one of you getting gills and then trying to figure out how those work. For the remainder of his time, though, but as he's here trying to practice breathing, he is going to basically have to do a series of rolls to see if he can get it. So he goes to sit on an old hill where there are kind of large tombstones everywhere, kind of almost comedically large, likely the place where giant skeletons were supposed to pop up and attack people. But it's a good enough isolated location and high enough where he can sit down in a meditative pose and just focus on breathing. So his first roll is going to be whether or not he can acknowledge that he needs to do this. Oh God. No, he cannot acknowledge it. He can't square it off with himself that he needs to be more human to survive. If anything, he feels like he needs to be less human and just let go of these ideas. Takes 4 stability damage from that. He is going to feel himself starting to disassemble a little and then start slapping himself in the face on either side. All right, get it together. You need to do this, Jeff. Just focus. There's nothing you can't do. Nothing you cannot do, including learning this witchcraft bullshit. He takes more stability damage.
Oh no!
He could feel himself, as he calls it, witchcraft bullshit, remembering the hits that he took and the feeling of Tonayo manipulating him through his shoulder, and begins to glitch even harder. If he drops below 30%, he's probably going to start distorting and being discolored. He just stops, and tries to focus as best that he can. So to get through this, you as players, each one of you, pick one character for him to think of as he is attempting to remember how to breathe. It could be your own character that you have out here, or it could be someone else's, or it could be an NPC. But he is going to focus on the people that he's met and talked to as he attempts to channel. So you want him to think of Nia. That's the first one. What would Nia say to him at a time like this, if he needed to remember how to breathe?
Something dumb that would make him do the emote we have in chat.
Yes, Nia. What would Nia say that would make him do that about breathing?
I feel like she would be like, it's like laughing. You gotta breathe in to laugh, or maybe like think of how you calm yourself right before a big stunt.
Jeff thinks of those words as if they were being spoken to him right in front of him, and he tries to focus on that. And he puts his hands in front of his face and presses them to his nose. And just thinks about all the times he's wanted to do that emote at Nia, where he just breathes in and then says, Nia. But this time when he goes to do it, he thinks about it. He actually does breathe in. Wait, what? Oh, can I do that again? Hold on. Right, so what's the next character? I'll say, Nia, who should he think of?
Marisol learned to do this. Can't let some Earth person outdo him.
If Marisol were there talking to him, what would she say to get him to remember how to breathe for Haman?
She'd probably say he's so high up his ass, he really can't figure out how to breathe. Something any moron could do. It's pathetic.
He thinks about that and gets mad and just punches the ground. Damn it. Maybe she's right, though. What's the last person he should think of?
Does it have to be one of our characters?
No, any NPC is fine.
Getting back to Lewis?
Okay. Yeah, he thinks of his brother. His brother would say, you know, she's not wrong, but she's also not right about you. You're more than just a CEO, Jeff. You're like, I don't know, kind of my hero. So I think someone I think of as a hero could like probably figure this out. Jeff will roll again. And not only is he breathing, with a roll like that, he puts his hand to his face and pulls off a holographic tear and kind of just looks at it very closely, holding it up to the light of the sky, looking through it. It's like a prism. His first impulse is to crush it. And instead, he simply pockets it. Maybe he'll do something with it later. He figures out how to breathe, though. An important function that a human needs to have. And gladly, then, he goes to Tona the Sun Mover after figuring this out. And kind of, even like if a child had figured out how to breathe, this is what Jeff's doing. He's just going, ooh, wow. Tona, just give claps for him. Very good. You've learned to do what a baby can do as soon as it's born. Should I slap your ass? Jeff lifts his chin. Like to see you try, pal. Tona just waves him off. I know better. Guy like you would probably not like that. Or maybe you would. I don't judge. You want to learn how to do Ripple. Then now that you know how to breathe, you can finally start learning. A guy like you who already knows how to use the stand can pick it up very quickly if you want. But only the basics. Nothing fancy. I can teach you more about breath control, sensing the ripple, and in your case, bringing it to a sort of stability. It will take a bit of time, but who knows? Maybe the way your brain works now, you'll be able to get it quicker than most. Let's begin. Oh, and also, when you do get back to the world, be sure to tell my sister that, she has a rival. You, of course. See, that's the idea. You pick up on this, you get better at Ripple, eventually you go back, you kick her ass, right? Make sure you tell her you're better at Ripple. And then she'll say, oh no, I am not good at Ripple anymore. I need to practice. And then she'll stop being such a lazy asshole and maybe get better at it, Because she's not that good. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think she's that great, even though she fought me and it was a draw. To be honest with you, he folds his arms. I was doing great. I have a very powerful stand, and also I am a master of Ripple, and I don't have the problems anymore. And then she just comes in and she tries to do her whole thing, and this lady walks out and just threatens me. Starts turning me in the glass, and I'm like pissed off about that. He's just going off now. Jeff is just nodding his head until it just becomes like a drone at him, where he just finds himself kind of nodding even after Tonayo stops talking, just automatically. Tonayo notices this and then kind of kicks at the ground. Whatever. First, I'm going to get a drink. Then we are going to have this practice. And so, for the remainder of his time here at the camp, under the watchful eye of Tonayo, Jeff is practicing or trying to practice Haman. He is dipping his hands into the waters at the shore, occasionally punching into it. He's practicing breathing in a meditative pose. He even at one point manages to sort of step out onto the water and kind of step fully onto it as if he were standing on a platform, though it doesn't last for very long. His foot goes right through it eventually. All the while, Tonayo is watching him. Until at last, at the end of the day, Jeff has accomplished... I'll ask Marisol. Marisol, what is the least powerful thing you could accomplish with Ripple, but still have Ripple?
Purifying water.
And that's what he does with a cup of dirty water from one of the undead kind of stockholds taken from like a puddle or something. He manages to sift out the sediment and the debris and the poisonous the toxins in it, and cause them to kind of minimize, eventually lift out of the water, and then small arcs of light and electricity kind of go between all the little points, little minerals, little fragments, the poisons, and starts destroying them until after he does this, steam begins to rise up from the small glass and he's left with a cup of pure water. He looks through it. Wow. I guess this makes me a witch. Very shitty witch, but a witch nevertheless. Tonayo picks up the water. Okay, I'm going to drink this. He slowly lifts it to his lips and then just drinks it down. Not bad. Not bad at all, Jeff Linne. Little bit of an aftertaste, but it will do. You have learned the very basics of Ripple. Now, think about that while... you know what? Actually, I want you to think about the happiest parts of your life. Think about something that brings you nothing but joy. And then he turns to Charna, who's hopefully nearby. And then he says, okay, now hit him with your stand.
As you wish. She'll just go up to him and try to put the spinning stand inside of him.
He's got his eyes closed right now, looks completely peaceful. Seems to actually be trying to think of something happy. So you just put the coin in him while he just does the most innocent, peaceful Jeff you've ever seen.
She gently puts a hand on his shoulder and says, I will be your teacher now. And then begins to do so.
Sorry, what? And then the coin hits him, I guess, and goes in. Ah! So he can't really feel pain like we do, but he still feels it. And he just lights up like a Christmas tree as soon as you do that. He's screaming the entire time as the coin kind of goes through his strange holographic form and spots small errors and overlap and conflicts and just smooths them out, eliminates them. The whole time he's just convulsing flashing like a firefly, just off and on.
Tonayo will calmly sit in front of him in a meditation pose while he's screaming.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with. But eventually, once it has finished, he is. We'll see actually what he's like. 49% more stable. So he starts to look a little bit more just stable in general, a little bit more human. Once your coin has finished like working through his system, he is breathing now reflexively from exhaustion of pain. All right, don't. That was like that was the deepest tissue massage I've ever had in my life.
I believe that is equivalent to what my stand now does.
He looks down at his own hand and can sort of see what look like the beginnings of like maybe veins, though they're just illusory. Hit me again.
As you wish. Shall I go faster?
Whatever's the most powerful. Hit me with maximum power, in fact.
It will cause more pain.
Yeah, well, you know what really causes a lot of pain? Being a useless sack of shit. So if this makes things better, then maximum power it is. I'd rather be in agony than be useless.
Tarna starts to laugh. Well, I like your spirit. And she'll put the coin back into his now nerved hands.
Yeah, he just begins to flash again. Tona's staring at this. Why does that philosophy sound so familiar to me? He shrugs. Okay. Actually, Maxim, how much would you say, like, compared to the amount of power you used before, would you say maximum power is? Like,
Well, what you agreed to is the faster it goes, the more it spins, like the more painful it will be. So I imagine like the disc literally gets bigger as it gets faster. I guess 3 times is fine.
Yeah, once it's done, he is just a smoking human form. His stand is like Mr. Blue Sky is just laying sprawled out on the ground. He's still sitting in his chair though. Thank you.
Has his form changed any? Does he have more?
He just looks human now.
Like he actually has skin and stuff?
As far as you can tell.
Yeah, Turner would like take his hand and sort of observe over him. Well, we've made progress.
Charna's a palm reader, isn't she?
Yeah, she generally tells fortunes, though it had connected to like paper before.
But she can read palms.
Yeah, she probably can.
If you were to observe his palm, you would see the lines that you normally associate with life and mind and soul are kind of weirdly all running parallel and long, as if he has some kind of very strange composition to himself as to be read through palmistry. This is not necessarily a human palm, not a bad thing. It's just a very odd thing.
Turner probably would take a moment to like pause and like look over the lines in his hand. You have a strange destiny before you.
Yeah. More witchcraft? Strange destiny is probably the nicest way to put that. I have to throw down with a goddess.
Does she have white hair?
As a matter of fact, she does.
Yes, I'll have to apologize for that.
Why? He stares at you, kind of like head a little cocked, and you, as someone who has your abilities, can tell what he's doing. He is reading your mind, and you know it.
She'll just look him in the eyes calmly.
He narrows his eyes. Huh. So you're the one. Well, part of the group. I see. Guess I should thank you then.
Thank me?
Sure. How often does a guy get to throw down with an actual goddess? Get to prove to the moon and the earth that he is the hero that he keeps saying he is. I wouldn't get the chance if it weren't for you making that mistake.
I don't know much about heroism, but you do seem to be connecting back to life. That is enough.
Yeah, it's okay to be alive, I guess. even if it means being tortured by a dancing teenager. Puffy hair.
Who is this?
Nah, don't worry about it.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
uh, I find torture is generally brought about by the self, and also my witchcraft is different than the one you have learned.
I see. Torture brought about by the self. You may have more insight than you realize there. Thank you. He stands up from the chair and just fixes his clothes, summons out another coat finally to put on. I'll be departing for the world now. The living world, that is. I'll be sure to tell your sister what you wanted me to tell her there. And what else can I say? Except, you're welcome. Tona stares at him. Welcome for what? And then he just just stares at Jeff as Jeff just smiles and nods and begins to fade away. Jeff has projected himself kind of backwards. He's just leaving an after image now as the light within him kind of streaks off and away and into the sky, leaving a confused Tona and Charna, I'm sure, to just stare at him, his just fading out form. The hell is wrong with that guy?
I think he is full of the self.
Yeah.
Seems
Yeah, I think you're
familiar.
right. Jeff streaks through the sky yet again, zigzagging in the same way he did as when he arrived at that island. But this time, as he passes over that small town in Narayan, he takes a moment to look down and see that Aurelia and her son are still there, and that there are players talking to her, doing some sort of quest. And as he reaches the halo that goes up back into the real world and steps out onto it, he reaches into his pocket and takes out a small jar of honey and that single tear that he cried out earlier. He just stares down at them. And he opens the jar, sticks a finger into it, and puts the honey in his mouth. Just a taste. It's good honey. The halo rises back into the air. Time moves faster in the background world. So for the real world, this may have been only, a quarter of a day. For him, a full day, more or less. There's enough time for him to learn the very, very basics of Haman. And in the process, save himself. Jeff now has Ripple at a level of 0. And that's what he rolls. And he rises up to face down what he sees as probably the fight of his existence. The moon is bright and pale, and there is an order, but it is not an organic order, not a good order. It's an order that is suppressive and dehumanizing. There was a time in his life where that would have been more of his bag. You guys saw the blue ending, and you know that he would eventually lead to that if he were in the position to do so. But because he has accepted parts of himself, because he has accepted that Aurelia is a person, not simply a thing, and because he has remembered the importance of being human in this world, he may have changed his destiny. If you could see the future now, it would look different under the rulership of Jeff Linne. And that is the ending for this session. But old Jeffy, I wasn't kidding. He really could have died.